I've known today's guest for, I guess it's been a little bit over a decade, close to it. Phillip Kelley, everybody. He helps people maximize their livings by inspiring them to overcome their best version of themselves. He relinquishes a full ride Division I scholarship to become a senior pastor at the age of 19. Wow, I cannot even imagine that. After 15 years of launching.
I didn't know what I was doing, bro. I need to write them an apology letter to say, I really apologize. Terrible leadership, really bad sermons, and so.
I'm sure you killed it. You're a great person, great speaker. But yeah,
high on caffeine, that's for sure.
After 15 years of launching and building ministries, the Kansas City Chiefs asked him to serve on their team as a chaplain, character coach, providing leadership development and spiritual formation for the entire organization. In 2017, he was promoted to a role of director of NFL Pro Operations, Athletes in Action, where he leverages his story, failures, addictions, and recovery to coach and counsel all other NFL chaplains, because every pastor needs a pastor. Because of his transparency and transformation, his surprising turn of events led him to become a highly sought-after speaker, personal life coach, and consultant to some of the world's most successful leaders and companies. He founded Purpose-Driven Coaching, Iceberg Leadership Consulting, and Overcomer Academy, all of which strive to maximize each person's unique potential. He's the author of the book Divine Disturbance, Broken to Build. Great book, by the way. You must get that.
Man, I've sold dozens worldwide.
I love it. It's so good. I bought the Kindle version and the physical copy.
Come on,
I have the audio.
There you. Hey, my family thanks you.
Yeah, but Phillip considers it his life's joy to help individual companies, schools, and churches fulfill their purpose in this generation. And you know what? It's kind of funny. I was looking back and thinking about it, how we first met. And we met at Campbellsville, Kentucky, which is a very, very small town. If I'm not mistaken, probably population of maybe 11,000, not much more.
Yeah, maybe.
But I was serving on the youth team under Coach Jim Ward. I love that guy. And
yeah.
I was sitting on the left side. I remember it to this day, the left side of the youth area, laying across like 6 or 7 chairs. And I think I was on my phone or something. And you came running, like walking through the door, and you said, "Hey," you had a real bubbly smiley, and "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, how are you?" Like, I didn't know you. I didn't know anything about you. And you walked through the door. You asked me like where something was. I don't remember. It might have been a conference room or something. I was like, "Oh, it's right over here," and showed you where it is. And I came back and I was like, "Man, that was really weird. I wonder who that was." And I didn't think anything about it. I was
probably asking like, "Dude, hey, where's the bathroom, man? I gotta go back."
It's so funny. But we a few months later, probably after that, you preached at our church. We were looking for a senior pastor. And you ended up getting, if memory serves me right, we had no person that voted on you at the time said no. Like nobody declined you, denied you. You were the unanimous choice to be our next pastor.
But if they would have voted now, they would have been like, "No, bro, no, we're not gonna." Like.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I know we were coming out of a really weird season, and you were great. I value your friendship, and I value you, and I love reaching out to you and talking to you about different stuff, and just really enjoy talking to you. And I know you've been like the journeys that you made from then. How long did you spend at Living Grace?
It was 3 years, but it felt like about 47.
Really? I was gonna say it felt like longer than that.
No, man, it was less than, it was like 2 years and like 10 months. I mean, it was less than 3 years, but it about killed me.
I can only imagine. I've heard so many stories.
Yeah, buddy.
But I've been blessed to know you. And I've been blessed by your leadership and serving under you and your friendship. And I just kind of want to start at the beginning, the basics, and just hear your story. I know you became a pastor at 19. You had a D1 baseball scholarship. So share with us whatever you want.
Yeah, buddy. First of all, I just want to, commend you, Aaron, for your leadership. I mean, dude, I don't know who all is going to listen to this but just to affirm you and your desire to grow. I mean, I met you were probably 13, 14 years old. You may have weighed 100 pounds. I don't even know. But you were just like always, have you seen the show Hamilton, like on Disney Plus?
I have not seen that.
Dude, oh, come on, man, you got it. Anyway, there's a song, it's like, I want to be in the room where it happens. And it's the idea of like, you're not quite sure who's going to be involved, but you just know wherever the action is, you want to be in that room. And you are always in the room. Like, and sometimes we're like, dude, is Aaron's like, where's this? Like, is he here? All right, come on. Like, and it was just you, even though that you were 14, 15 years old, you just carried yourself in such a mature way that it didn't matter how old you were. You had the goods. And so I just appreciated your friendship and your leadership. And man, we worked you probably tirelessly. Child labor laws. So the check's in the mail. Checks in the mail on that one. But yeah, man. I mean, I wasn't like, for me, I wasn't raised in the church. I came from a broken family. My dad was the town drunk. Small town growing up. We only had 2,500 people in our entire town. And so as like a kid, it was always like super embarrassing to have your dad either passed out in the bleachers or just making a jerk of himself at some social function or recital or whatever. And so like early on, I just thought, okay, well, as like a 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, I'm just going to determine to be perfect. Like, I want to be the best, whatever I was doing. And it was really not for any other reason, just it took the attention away from my dad. And so at least I could control that. I could control my own work ethic. And, it just created a lot of good habits and a lot of bad habits as well. But what it did, it developed this idea of like performance-based identity. Like, I'm only as good as my last game or my last test or speech or whatever. Had a really bad speech impediment as a kid, like growing up. I stuttered all the time, even like as a high school quarterback. I don't even know if you even know this, but like I would get the play in the huddle, and I couldn't speak it in the huddle. And so I would go to like a speech therapist, and they would teach me how to sing my cadence. And so, because when you sing, you use a different part of your brain and you don't stutter or whatever. But even like growing up with a really bad speech impediment, it just forced me to be a communicator in a weird way. So like the things that are hindrances early on now can be a strength. But yeah, so I wasn't raised in the church. The only time I stepped foot into a church, I was 16, almost 17 years old. There was a cute girl that wouldn't date me unless I went to church with her. And so it's like, yeah, let me go to church. And I mean, I'm grateful that it wasn't some crazy cult that she was a part of, because I would have like totally believed her. Like, yeah, sign me up. This is what I believe in. Yeah, so gave my life to Jesus as a 16-year-old kid on a Saturday. And then the next day on Sunday, the senior pastor of the church put me up in front of 1,000 people and said, "Hey, I want you to share your testimony." I'm like, I leaned over, I'm like, "What's a testimony?" He was like, "Just share your story." And so I did, and I was like, "Man, this is amazing. Like, I want to do this for the rest of my life." So, started doing that as a high school kid. Ended up doing pretty well in baseball. I was working out with the Kansas City Royals as a high school kid, and gonna go in the minor leagues, and ended up going to Liberty University on a baseball scholarship, where I quit the team and then gave up my scholarship, and then took out student loans, and then called my mom, and she was not very happy with me. Which now looking back, I'm like, I can see why she would not be. Like, I'm still paying student loans. I think I still got like $56,000 of student loans to pay. I'm gonna still be paying student loans on the scholarship that I gave up while my kids are going to school. Like, that's awesome. But yeah, so I gave up my baseball scholarship. There was a little bitty church called Sandy Level Baptist Church in Goodview, Virginia, that they called the seminary, looking for a seminary graduate or a PhD candidate to go be their senior pastor. Somehow my name gets thrown into the mix, where I put a suit and tie on and go down there as a 19-year-old sophomore undergrad, and I preach. And I didn't tell them my age. So I guess if I like lied on the church like entrance exam or whatever, like whatever, I just, whatever. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell him I was 19. Which probably just like whatever. Not the best podcast person. Anyway, but that's how I got started. And then I worked for the founder of Liberty University, Dr. Falwell, for a year. I asked him, I said, "Hey, I think I could be the next president of this college one day and take your place. So if I'm gonna take your spot and take over from you, I need to learn from you. So I think you need to bring me on as a special assistant, so I can be a fly on the wall and catch vision from you." And he was just like, "Who are you? Like, what?" And I was just like, "I'm not taking no for an answer." And so he's like, "Well, all right, we'll do it." I was like, "Really? For like legit?" He's like, "Yeah." And so we traveled the country together. I was in meetings that I had no business being involved in for a couple of years, and it was the best, man. I loved it. And then went to Austin, Texas, went to Campbellsville, Kentucky, came back to Kansas City, hometown, 2011, where I came on staff at a church called Grace Church of Oakland Park. And then a bunch of the Kansas City Chiefs players started coming to our church. One thing kind of led to another, and they said, "Hey, can you come be our team chaplain?" I did, and then the rest is history. So,
wow, you almost non-intentionally led into my second question. I was going to talk about the Chiefs a little bit, how you got started there, because I think that's so cool. Obviously, as a football fan and sports fan, like, I love sports and merging those two worlds. But let me first say, I'm still not over our loss to you in the playoffs. So, like, I'm gonna need a few more time to get my heart back right, because that was crushing as a Titans fan.
Well, yeah.
But I'm happy for you.
It wouldn't have been so bad had we not totally just came back. You guys did a good job for a few quarters.
Yes, that was heartbreaking. I'm still not over it. And I'm not going to be over it until we win the Super Bowl this year.
That's gonna be really, really challenging if we have a season.
Yeah. So I remember my senior year at Liberty. I went to Liberty University too, and you're part of the reason I actually went there. I didn't know where to go. I knew I had a call of God. God had a call on my life, and He wanted me to go to school, and I didn't know where to go. And I reached out to several people, and I can't remember if I reached out to you or not, but I reached out to one of my friends named Isaac Harris, who also went to Liberty, and he went to Liberty. I knew you went to Liberty, and I was like, well, it just seems like Liberty needs to be where I go. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably didn't know that, but you were one of the reasons I'm a Flame alumni now. So
with the mascot, the eagle. It's a weird deal.
I know, right? Maybe you can go back and be our president now. That's another story.
I will keep that one shut on that one.
Yes. But yeah, I remember my senior year, I interviewed you for, I took a chaplain class, and I reached out to you and asked you to answer a few questions for a paper I was writing. And I thought it was so cool how you got started in the NFL. You were on staff, and then all of a sudden, you were at the right place at the right time, and God intervened, and there you are. Next thing you know, you're in was it Arrowhead Stadium, walking around with the security guy. You said you walked around for a year. I remember with a guy to earn players' trust and the coaching staff and everybody's trust, and you really had to build their trust before they trusted you, because you mentioned everyone wants something from them, and I admired that about I read that when you told me that, and I was like, wow. I can totally see you just not even thinking twice, building trust like that. So I thought it was so cool reading that and how you got started there, and how one day, they just like, hey, they were flying in a guy every week to be their chaplain, and you ended up being their chaplain for a while. And then you started some cool things there. You did some cool things. You started some programs. Could you talk a little bit about those for a minute?
Yeah. So the crazy thing about NFL, they said, all right, Phil, NFL stands for not for long. So you're not. Is that a ski, by the way? Are you drinking a ski? Oh,
yeah.
Dude, it's been so long since I've had one of those. Anybody who's watching this outside of the central Kentucky bubble has no idea what we just said. But I saw that green soda, and you just made my day.
I'm going to mail you some now.
Oh, yeah. NFL stands for not for long. They said, now you're not guaranteed another year, another game, so you just got to earn your trust. And so a guy who was the chaplain for in the Cleveland area, he was the Cleveland Browns, the Cavaliers, and the Indians. So he was the NFL, the Major League, and the NBA for 25 years in Cleveland. His name is Tom Petersburg. And he said, you always have to have your head on a swivel, because you don't know who's chasing and who's following. And I was like, that is such a great line, because he's like, you think that the security guy loves you, but he's just detailing you because he wants to know who you're talking to or where you're going, or it's such a weird world. But once you earn their trust, it's like you're in, you're in the club, but it just takes a long time to get there. But one of the things that we did early on, we launched what we called the Faith and Family Chapel, which we're the only NFL experience to have not just the players' pregame chapel service at the night before the game at the team hotel, but the day of the game, we would invite fans, like any fan, to come to the stadium and have the same chapel service that we just gave to the players for the tailgaters. And so, yeah, so our team owner, Clark Hunt, kind of gave his blessing on that. And, you know, it's nice to be able to have your owner a strong believer, their family. And so they just, yeah, let's roll with it. So we were the first NFL team to do that. Still going to this day. We started that in 2013. So it's 7 years. This will be the 7th or 8th year. And now other teams are doing it. So that's cool. And yeah, I think that was your question.
Yeah, for sure. That was so cool, like hearing your story about that. And I think you wrote a blog post about it too, or it might have been on your website where you gave a review on it. And I just love following along with that.
Oh, it's fun. I mean, you know, at Arrowhead in Kansas City, it's like, it's an all-day experience. And so we have tailgaters who get there at like 6 a.m. for a noon game. And so we would have an entire like evangelism, we call it our street team, where, you know, they would literally go and bring people in, you know, bring your beer, bring your this, bring your, you know, bratwurst. Hey, come on out. So it's a very rowdy church environment. But we'd have worship. It's a full-blown church service.
Yeah, it's so cool. That's incredible. Shift gears for a second. I love hearing advice from people. I love hearing what people say, and I've probably asked for your advice all the time on different stuff. But I was curious, what do you think your best piece of advice you've ever received is?
Wow. Best piece of advice. You know, I mean, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. My mom used to always tell me that. But, you know, I would say a mentor of mine who is like, he's an older guy in the faith. Even now I meet with him. He's kind of like a coach for me. I meet with him once a week. But he always says that when we're vulnerable and transparent, instead of it creating a wall that separates us from other people, it creates a bridge to connect. And the faster we can get like real, the faster we can connect with other people. And I think that's such a life lesson, such a biblical lesson that we in our, I don't know, filtered Instagram, social media generation, we just always want to put our best face forward. And it's like a mile wide and an inch deep. And so I've just kind of chosen to say, okay, you know what? What if I take the opposite approach and say, hey, this is just kind of who I am, warts and all, and you can like me or not. But I think the more I can do that with enough people, like at least I know I'm going to help somebody with the real stuff of life, not just a facade.
So interesting. I've never heard that before. I'm definitely putting that in my Evernote of great quotes, you know?
Come on. Love
it.
Me some Evernote.
Me too, bro. Me too. Oh, you probably turned me on to it.
I guarantee you I did.
So good. What kind of on that same line, what if you could go back in time, do you think you would change like anything about, like, besides maybe like keeping your full ride baseball scholarship and not having loans, you know, but would you give yourself any kind of different advice or do anything differently in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I got married too soon. I was 22. My wife's 26, so she would say, yeah, you know. But gosh, I was just so young. And I felt like I learned a lot of just like hard knocks. Like I didn't know how to budget. I didn't know how to, let's be honest, I still don't know how to budget. Like there's just so much that I didn't know. And the premarital counselor met with us 3 times and he says, okay, the 2 things that we're not going to talk about, we're not going to talk about sex and we're not going to talk about money, because you just got to figure that out as you go. And I'm over here writing down like, okay, yeah, good advice, you know? And now I'm like, what crap advice was that? So, yeah.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
I don't think I knew you got married at 22.
Yeah.
No, I know that. Was that during, did you meet Fran at Liberty or?
Yep. I met her my junior year after a failed engagement, which that was a whole other deal. Yeah.
Wow. I want to ask you one other question, because I know that you love to read and I love to read. And I'm curious what your answer is going to be to this. You can't say the Bible, but what is your favorite all-time book?
It depends on what day it is.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, golly. I mean, I was just... I'm reading right now The Purpose-Driven Life again. I try to read that maybe once a year. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Oswald Chambers, Most for His Highest. Oswald Sanders, Spiritual Leadership. Another spiritual leadership book by Henry Blackaby. John Maxwell, Failing Forward. John Maxwell, The Success Journey. That was my first leadership book. So I think it'll always be kind of like a part in my heart for that. It really just depends on what day it is. I mean, I try to read at least a book a week. And so every book is like, dude, this is the best book ever, you know?
How do you manage to read a book a week? Are you a fast reader or?
No, I just don't watch TV. So I don't watch TV and I listen to Audible. You know, if it's a really good book, I'll listen to it at like 1.25. If it's kind of an okay book, it'll be like 1.5 or 1.75. So I'll listen to it pretty fast. I'm trying to think. Yeah,
I love Audible.
It's the best. It's the best.
I read along with it. So like I'll hit play on Audible and then read along with it in the book. So I'm a highlighter and writing all my books. I do that all the time.
What's your favorite book besides Divine Disturbance, Broken to Build?
Dang it! I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
It's tough. 2 that really come to mind. I read, well, probably 3 actually. I read, what's it called? Driven by Eternity by John Bevere. When I was in seminary, and that one really rocked my world. Like changed how I live as far as like with eternity mindset. Absolutely love that book. And then the other book that really changed my life was Greater by Stephen Furtick. And walking down the each chapter with Elijah and the different areas of his life just really got to me. And Elijah to this day is my favorite biblical character, but that's neither here nor there. But I love that book. the one that changed my life the most was a secular book, if you want to use that term. It was called Missoula, and it was about rape in a small college town. And I read it. We were on break at ORU, Christmas break, and I read this book, and it really changed my life because it gave me my mission, I guess you would call it, my vision, my burden in life, and is really, which is, to open a nonprofit one day. I want to open a nonprofit that ministers to women who have been abused, and it came out of that book. So like I spent a good 4 or 5 months in that book, like weeping, crying, rereading. Still read it a lot to this day, but it changed my life. I think those are the three probably I would say the most. Just really love them.
Wow, sounds like you do have a divine disturbance, like for real. Like that is another book along with that is Visioneering by Andy Stanley. So good.
Yes. So
good. Also, Communicating for a Change by Andy Stanley.
Yes. Is
such a great, yeah.
Yes.
But I would say for me, I would say the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would say outside the Bible, by far, my favorite book. Like I read it. I read that every day, and I try to go to probably now virtually probably 3 meetings a week. But yeah, man, I still like that's such part of my passion is to like demystify the idea of recovery or what that is, because the first funeral that I preached was my dad's. I was 20 and he was 52, and it was basically alcohol, induced suicide. I swore that I was never going to be like my dad, and because I knew what it did to him, and then just what he did to me, and just a lot of abuse that I've really never even like opened that gallery ever. But what you focus on expands, and when you focus on what you're not going to be, you end up being that very thing if you're not careful. And so in like 2016, I was just stressed to the max. Had a TV deal on NBC, a radio deal, book just came out with the NFL, raising up, I'm a full-time missionary too, so I'm raising my own support. So if I don't raise it, we don't eat. And then my wife gets really sick. She has like 4 softball-sized fibroid tumors. 1 ruptured. We're in the hospital. She had emergency hysterectomy. The surgeon severed her ureter, so she starts like becoming septic where we don't know it. And then, dude, it was just like a recipe for disaster. And I started secretly drinking because I wasn't sleeping at night. And so I was just filled with so much shame because I just got done telling people like for my whole life that I'm not going to do this. And then all of a sudden I'm doing the very thing that I swore that I was never going to do, but I felt like I couldn't tell anybody because I was going to get fired. So I thought, and so I just kind of kept this secret for about a year, and it about killed me. And so, when it was February 1, 2017 is when a counselor recommended, he's like, look, dude, I would recommend that you go get like the help that your dad never got, that you wish that you would have. And so I went to a treatment center in Nashville, Tennessee. There you go. Go Titans. For 45 days. It was for 6 weeks. And dude, it was the best. It was the best gift that I never wanted, the biggest blessing that I never thought that I needed. And, I learned so much just about the whole idea of you know, everybody's going through something, and alcohol was just a symptom to something that was way deeper. And until you get to like the root of that, then you'll never address the fruit of it, whatever that looked like. So for me, like, that is a passion of mine. It's just like debunking this stereotype that, especially in the Christian leadership space, where people are just expected, well, Jesus is just going to heal you. Okay, well, yes, he will. But he also wants to do it through community. And oh yeah, by the way, there's an incredible community out there of people. Like, honestly, I would say that AA is what the church should be like. Like, I really believe that if you've never been to like a recovery meeting, I think Celebrate Recovery is okay, but like, you got to go to some like AA meetings or Narcotics Anonymous, or, you know, like, there's some great conversations being had in those circles, let me tell you. And it's great because, you know, you kind of share your struggles, and in the church world, people are like, no. And those circles, they're like, oh yeah, last Tuesday did the same thing. And you're like, oh, all right, these are my people, you know? So that's just a passion of mine that it's crazy because, you know, I say that I did everything in my power to get fired and end up getting a promotion. So when I was with the Chiefs, that's kind of where I told the whole organization, hey, this is kind of what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. I came back from the treatment center and they were like, hey, you know, we love you. Still, you know, have your job back. And that's when my boss with Athletes in Action was like, hey, you can still stay with one team, which is fine if you want, but why don't you help all the teams? He's like, because I'd be naive to think that you're the only NFL chaplain or high profile, whatever, pastor who's going through difficulties and they feel like they can't talk to anybody. He's like, so now you have street cred. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that's in a weird, like, when I say crazy turn of events, like, that's like, I never was like out trying to become what I do now. It just kind of like happened, and I love it.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love your transparency, and you like literally just bought into your great advice from your mentor, you know, the best advice you ever heard, by being vulnerable and breaking barriers and stuff. I appreciate that. And you and I have never talked about that between each other. So
yeah, no,
I know a lot of that as well. But kind of just going to wrap up with a cheerful moment, because I know that you are one of the best motivators I've ever heard in my life. You're so good at motivating people and encouraging people and loving people. So I'm going to give you the floor, and I'm going to say, motivate people during this season and however you want. So you can look at it through the terms of like, we've got this mess with COVID going on and enduring it, or you can go in a whole nother route. You can whatever you want to do. I'm ready to be motivated, excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think good motivators ask good questions. So why do I need to motivate you?
Well, I'm looking at the state of our country, and we have the mess with COVID going on, which is in and of itself something. You have all of the racism that still exists to this day, which is mind-blowing. You have the back and forth between, you know, people within that sphere, you know, arguing. Then you have the election that's upcoming. And it just seems so much so right now, at least in my opinion, that we're as divided as ever in our country. And I think it takes a lot of people like yourself and pastors to stand up and be like, hey, like, it doesn't have to be this way, and leading out on the front lines and being encouraging and showing a better way. And I know that you do that very, very well, because I've known you, I've seen your life, I've seen your videos, I've seen your, been under your preaching for a long time. And I just know like the fruit of your life, and I know that you're going to bring it and encourage us. and it's going to be like this never happened. We're going to look back at this and be like, what was this? Why didn't Phillip just stand up when it first happened and like bring it?
Man. Well, first of all, I appreciate that, and you're very kind. I would say there's much of me, if not most of me, that says, dude, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just. It's so funny though that you say that. I'm gonna walk with you. So you asked. I did not know that you were Estes. So I do this video at the every Tuesday and third. So my mom works at this little church. She's the church secretary. But anyway, so I just got done doing this video where every Tuesday and Thursday at 1:23. Hold on, at 1:23. Don't mind me. I'm just over here putting a video together. Yeah, this is awesome. We're in like middle of nowhere, Kansas City. Oh, hi, Mom. It's my baby boy. So anyway, she's like the secretary. I swear there's like 7 people at this church, and they're all over 140. But don't tell them I said that. All right. So anyways, I was just here though. I was like, hey, I need to steal your Wi-Fi. So I was just in the area, so I was doing this video, but I brought this, I don't know if you can read that, but I just did this video where I said, okay, we need to quit shooting on ourselves. And these little church ladies were like, what? Like, yeah, quit shooting. And so I said, I carried this with me. This was a piece of paper that I carried with me in 2017. It was in my pocket for an entire year. So I wrote this as my goal in the treatment center where I was in Nashville. And I said, let go of, this is my goal. This is like for the 6 weeks that I was there. This is my one goal. I'm going to let go of perceived expectations of what people think I should do, be, and act, and then act as if I'm operating out of my true, authentic self. Like, I think most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, we should on our lives. Like, I should do this, and I should do this, and I should, and for me, much of my life, for the last 20 years, I've been in ministry, which I felt like I always should do. And yet what I've always wanted to do is the very thing that I'm doing now. It's speaking and motivating and teaching in the corporate sector, doing one-on-one coaching, doing what I'm calling Overcomer Academy. It's like going in that space where I think that the church honestly should be on the front lines, but it's not. And yet somebody from a Fortune 500 company will bring in an NFL chaplain or somebody working in the NFL just because, oh, that's cool. But then I get to like covertly tell them about, the only message available, which is Jesus. But I would say so Harold Thurman, Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor, he said this. He said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs are men and women who have come fully alive. And when you find out that thing that makes you come alive, do that. Because when you can tap into the way you're wired, who you are, your personality, your strengths, your gifts, and the current setting and the season that we're in, that's where the perfect storm is. And never apologize. Like, don't sit back and say, well, I should do this or I should do that. I'm like, no, man. Like, if God's put it on your heart, do it. Do it. Because you don't answer to me. You don't answer to anybody else. But one day you'll stand before God and he'll say, not, why weren't you more like Phillip Kelley, or why weren't you more like so-and-so? Like, no, why weren't you Aaron Estes, the one Aaron Estes on the planet that I made? So, I don't know, man.
That was so good. Thank you so much. Wow. That's so good. I can't wait to even replay that and write down even more and reflect on that and meditate on it.
You should meditate on not shooting on yourself. That'll get you in trouble.
Oh man. But thank you so much for hopping on and chatting with me, Phillip. I love you so much, and I love our friendship. I love chatting with you, and I love following you. And speaking of following you, people can follow you and should follow you on Instagram at Phillip Kelley 1, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
And your videos Tuesday and Thursday, they are on Facebook.
Which is so like old people. Yeah.
Is that your, like, do you have a page or what from that?
I probably should. It's just, yeah. You know what? They can go to phillipkelley.net and click on videos, and I'm uploading most of those on there now. So
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely do that. They're incredible, and you're doing great stuff and great work. And I'm just overjoyed to know you and follow along with you and listen to your videos and hear your wisdom. And I'm so grateful for you, and I just wanted you to know that I love you. I'm in your corner, and I have no problem hopping on a flight or driving to Kansas City if you ever need me. So you know how to get in touch with me.
Good.
But thank you so much, Phillip, PK as I used to call you.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, thank you, and look forward to it.